I'm sure that every Bleach fan can relate to the feeling of waiting for one of your favorite characters to say the word Bankai during a make or break moment in battle. Some characters like Tozan, Mayuri, and Komomura did not shy away from revealing the second release of their Bankai, while other characters like Aizen or Ukitake held off from showing us the true extent of their power. As the series was drawing to a close, it had felt like Urahara was going to be another character who didn't get to show us his Bankai, but thankfully 23 chapters before the end of Bleach, we got to see Urahara unleash his Bankai at the end of chapter 664. With this character being a fan favorite, there was a lot of expectation leading up to this moment, and when it comes to Bankai transformations, I feel like no amount of excellent writing can meet the levels of hype that people want from their favorite characters showcasing their final form. So in this video, I'm going to talk about everything that we know about Urahara's Bankai, explaining its abilities and how it works, as well as going over the limitations of it. So join me as we break down and analyze the sinister surgical Bankai of Kisuke Urahara. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. Making its debut appearance at the end of chapter 664, Urahara's Bankai Kanonbiraki Benihime Aratame is a force to be reckoned with. We had brief mentions of his Bankai prior to its reveal during the 1000-Year Blood War arc. The most significant piece of information that we find out is that Urahara was the first individual in the history of the Soul Society to attain Bankai within the short span of 3 days. He was able to do so thanks to the help of an invention that he had created called the Tenshintai, a device that can make it easier for the user to submit their Zanpakuto to their will, so that they can attain Bankai in a considerably shorter period of time. The Tenshintai allows a Shinigami to forcibly materialize the spirit of their Zanpakuto into the human world. This is the reverse of acquiring Shikai, where typically a Shinigami is dragged into their inner world to meet with their Zanpakuto spirit. Without the Tenshintai, the minimum time period of acquiring Bankai is easily no less than 10 years. And this is not including the additional years worth of fighting experience that is also required to achieve this form. Using the Tenshintai to force your Zanpakuto to appear into our world is very dangerous, and Urahara had advised anybody seeking to learn Bankai via the Tenshintai to not use it more than 3 days, which was exactly the amount of time that he needed to attain his Bankai, which we find out in chapter 132. Before its reveal, Urahara's Bankai is mentioned one more time during chapter 224. After Chad asks Urahara to train him, he orders Renji to help Chad to get stronger, but Renji is hesitant to, as Urahara insists that Chad needs to train with someone who has already attained Bankai, and Renji is suited to this task. But he tells Urahara that he must have attained Bankai also, so why is it that he cannot train him? But Urahara refers to himself as a humble candy store owner who could only dream of attaining Bankai. Renji quickly snaps back by stating that everyone knows that Urahara was once a captain of the Gotei 13, as well as being responsible for creating his own Hokyoku. There is no way that he hasn't attained Bankai already. He tells Renji that he is the only one who can train Chad, because his own Bankai is not suited for training others or helping them. When Urahara activates his Bankai during his battle against Askin, he states that he has no other choice after the sternritter binds him and pushes him into a corner, as he realizes the Quincy is serious and is really trying to kill him. Upon activation, we see a kneeling Urahara sat in front of a giant towering woman who has just manifested behind him. The back of her dark colored hair is tied up in long exaggerated hoops, with 2 strands of hair running down the side of her face onto the ground and over her arms. She appears to be wearing a red, very revealing cloth that is barely concealing her body. The menacing woman also seems to be modeled after a puppet, as she has mannequin-like arms with clear markings over her joints that resemble those found in articulating action figures. This is just my observation, but the face of Benihime Aratame also resembles Unohana. I just have always thought of her whenever I see Urahara's Bankai. In chapter 665, we learn about the ability of his Bankai, as he reveals that it is the first time that he has used it in front of anyone who is currently on the battlefield. The effects of his Bankai occur within a specific target range, as the first attack we see with it involves Askin's left arm being cut open, like a surgeon dissecting a patient. Urahara reveals that his Bankai's ability ability is to restructure anything that it touches by cutting the targeted area open and stitching it back together again. He demonstrates this by restructuring his own eyes in order to restore his vision, as the towering Benihime Aratame places both of her hands over Urahara's face, healing him. We have seen this Bankai be used offensively as well as being used to strengthen Urahara's limbs. When he is attacking, he cuts open anything in his way, and when he restructures that which he has cut open, it is depicted as being stitched back together. He can use this restructuring to heal himself also. In addition to this, he was able to restructure his own arm in order to make it function in its optimum state, giving it more strength, which he had used to overpower Askin. This cutting and restructuring is all that we have seen of his Bankai. We have explained how it has multiple uses, and it is evident that the application of his power is far from limited. Some would even say that it is quite a broken Bankai, especially if it can really restructure anything to Urahara's liking. It would enable him to weaken the body of his opponent, enhance his own body parts, and to heal himself during battle. We also know that Urahara was able to use his Bankai to create a direct path into Askin's Gift Wall Deluxe, the inescapable Poison Fortress. He had created a path that allowed Grimmjow to enter into the Gift Wall from the outside, allowing the Arrancar to deliver the final blow to Askin. Some people have stated that Urahara's Bankai is very different from his Shikai, and how they don't quite make sense together because they don't complement each other well apparently. But when you examine the powers of his Shikai and Bankai, it is evident that they basically do exactly the same thing. His Bankai, like we have mentioned, allows him to restructure anything that Benihime touches, while his Shikai allows him to manipulate the red energy produced by his blade to create anything that he desires. In his Shikai, he is effectively restructuring the red energy. We see Urahara use it to create a shield, a burst of energy blasts, and in chapter 405, he had condensed the red energy to create a red net that he covers his opponent with, limiting their movement, and thus trapping them. The Shikai is effectively reconstructing the red energy generated by Benihime, while the Bankai reconstructs anything that Benihime touches. It's not just limited to the crimson energy. Urahara's Bankai is similar to a surgery. He can cut open anything or anyone, thus granting him access to the inner workings of people and objects. He can heal, buff, or debuff with this power. The applications of this power are only limited to the imagination of its user, and unfortunately for any opponent facing off against Urahara, the power is perfectly suited to him. The most fascinating use of this power was at the end of his battle with Askin. He had cut open the environment to allow Grimmjow to enter and kill the enemy. He deconstructed the environment by making a portal in Askin's Gift Wall Deluxe. Because of the wide range of application of his power, it ends up being a pretty broken or overpowered Bankai, and this is why I had it in my top 5 Bankai list video, which you should definitely check out if you enjoy listening to me talking about the powers and abilities of different Bleach characters. Now, with all of this praise showered upon Kanonbiraki Benihime Aratame, it does not mean that it is free from any weaknesses. Urahara's Bankai has 2 glaring problems which can be taken advantage of if they are known by the enemy. The first is the temporary effects of the restructuring that he has done. Any changes done by his Bankai remain only while the Bankai is active. The moment that it is deactivated, the restructured person or object reverts back to normal. We see this in chapter 666. After the Bankai is stopped, the stitches on his face open up again and start to bleed as he loses his vision once more. This is a glaring weakness, especially if Urahara is exhausted and appears to have the upper hand. The moment that his Bankai wears off, it could easily turn the tide of battle against his favor. The second, equally bad weakness is the limited range of the Bankai. Kanonbiraki Benihime Aratame only works on targets that are within its specific radius. Askin had figured this out after Urahara had cut him open. He had moved out of the radius of his Bankai as the cuts were no longer present on his body. Because we have only seen his Bankai for a couple of chapters, there is still a lot of future potential for it. I am confident that we have barely scratched the surface as to what he can do with it. Can Urahara restructure the molecules in the air, manipulate the bodily functions of his opponents by changing the composition of their blood or manipulating their brain? Is it possible for him to restructure the memories and make them see illusions, or even distress his enemy in weird ways by messing with their minds? This Bankai is another power that I can see being used during the Hell arc whenever Kubo drops another chapter of it. So we are definitely far from seeing the last of Urahara's Bankai. I think that this Bankai really matches the personality of Urahara and his existing powers perfectly. The giant puppet woman that is manifested is a creepy touch, and the power to restructure anything allows Urahara to heal, strengthen, or weaken anything that he wants to. The surgical theme of the power also complements Urahara well. I would be be interested to see how this Bankai evolves over time, if there are other powers and uses of it that we have yet to see. But as with all transformations within Bleach, the characters don't like to give away all of their secrets and prove to do an excellent job of concealing any tricks that they may have up their sleeves. Kubo loves to make sure that the Zanpakuto of each of the Shinigami follows some sort of theme, and they are designed or based off of Japanese folklore tales or concepts from Shinto Buddhism. So as Urahara Shikai restructures Reiatsu, his Bankai reconstructs actual matter. Now, what were your thoughts about Urahara's Bankai? Did it live up to your expectations, or did you feel like it was shoehorned into the endgame of Bleach? I would love for you to continue the discussion in the comments and let me know if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.